Hello, good evening, welcome. This is Glasgow Rangers. I'm Owen James. This is your Rangers news channel. We are obviously previewing the game against Ross County tomorrow. Tomorrow, isn't it? And I am very lucky to be joined by Ross from the County Corner, which is a Ross County podcast. Ross, how you doing? How's your week been?
I'm very good, Owen. Thank you for having me on. It's been good so far. Certainly recovering after a bit of a shock on Saturday, put it that way. But I think as the week's gone on, it's gotten a bit better. So yeah, looking forward to getting back to a bit of normality and league football.
Absolutely, 100%. It's nice to have the football back, isn't it, Ross? It's nice to have actual proper football on a Saturday now, and actually something to watch on a Saturday rather than all this pre-season nonsense. And although the transfer gossip is still continuing, but it's nice to have proper football back.
Yeah, 100%. And, for me, it even starts, on the Friday night. I really like watching the live championship games on BBC Scotland. There's not one tonight, which is unfortunate. So I've got to wait until tomorrow for the football fix. But I feel like that kind of kicks off the football weekend. And yeah, it's nice to be back into a bit of normality. These international breaks, pre-season, it's not for me. It's very much league action, week in, week out is the run of the mill for me.
Absolutely, 100%. A few people watching tonight. We do obviously know it's a very busy night for Rangers pods on a Friday night. So obviously some people will tune in tonight. Some people will pick this up at a later date. Now, Ross, we had a little chat off air about your podcast, The County Corner. Just tell me a little bit about The County Corner. How long have you been doing it? And what do you get up to on The County Corner?
So the page has been active for just over 2 years now. And we've been doing the podcast for coming up to 18 months, roughly. So it kind of all started with a guest appearance on the SFF podcast, which was the kind of first time I've ever done any podcast, media, anything like that involving Ross County, because it was just an opportunity that came up. I think they were looking for a county fan because someone had dropped out. I put my name forward because I think I've got two very good attributes in life. It's my knowledge about Ross County and being able to waffle on about anything possible. So the fact I can combine the two was pretty good. And after that guest appearance, I caught the bug a wee bit and wanted to kind of get something started myself. And yeah, the County Corner started. It's been quite, it's taken me back a wee bit of how well it's been received, certainly from Ross County fans so far. We just published our 51st episode last night and early this morning with a club captain from the last couple of seasons, Jack Baldwin. And he was very open and honest. So we've been able to get interviews with current players, former players, access to press conferences, both weekly and post-match, getting a lot of good content from there. And it seems to have been very well received. So I really appreciate the club working with us in that regard, giving us that kind of access. And yeah, I think for us as county fans, the usual drive home after a Saturday 3 o'clock game, when you're listening to the radio on Sports Sound and various other media outlets, we always feel like as one of the smaller teams in the Premiership, we don't obviously get as much coverage as Rangers, Celtic, Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen, Dundee United, all the bigger teams in the league. So it was very much another aim is to very much make it a Ross County fully focused podcast. So if there was anyone out there that was wanting to, get their Ross County content for the week, whether it be before a match, after a match, however they wanted to take it in, that was the objective as well, which again, it seems to be going well.
Absolutely. I mean, 100%, mate. I think for me, as a fan, it's so important to, for fans to be able to talk about their team, for fans to get content on their team and to be able to access that content. And I think, no matter what the size of the club or where you are in the league structure, I think it's really, you're always going to have that market and people that want to listen to you and find out a little bit more about their club. I found that from doing this. Obviously, you're finding out from doing County Corner. We've got a few questions in the live chat as well. The first one kind of links to my first question anyway, which Caleb asks, Ross, what are your thoughts on Ross County's transfer window? I mean, that's kind of links to the question I was going to ask anyway. So we'll let Caleb ask that question. What's your thoughts on the County's transfer window so far?
I think it's been pretty good so far. I think, the departures at first, I'll talk about that. For Don Cowie going into his first full season as a top flight manager, to lose your top goal scorer, your most creative outlet, and your club captain all in your first transfer window, that's tough going. So Jack Baldwin went down to Northampton. Jan Danda obviously signed that pre-contract with Hearts earlier last season and has made that move permanent, completed, and back to Dundee to be closer with his family, which is a manager to get hit with those parts. It's tough, but I think the early signs are that Don has really recruited well. So we've brought in a centre half, Akil Wright from Stockport County, who has looked very, very good. He came up here with a lot of very good reviews, able to play the centre of a back three, the right hand side of a back three, but also in midfield as well. Very good on the ball, adds a bit of pace to our back line, which we've maybe been lacking the last couple of years. Noah Chilvers has come in from Colchester United. He looks to be a good player. He's kind of come in halfway through pre-season, so he's still kind of getting up to speed in terms of minutes and whatnot. So we maybe won't see the best of him until after the international break when things kind of slow down again and you can kind of get him up to speed. But early signs are that he's a very creative outlet, can carry the ball very well, pop up with goals and assists, and hopefully can fill that Jan Danda void in the creativity side of the team. Josh Nisbet that signed yesterday, I think, is one that Ross County fans are hugely excited about because we've seen different teams in the top flight pick up players from the A-League, and the majority of them have had good success. I would say there's obviously been a couple that have not been, but for Ross County to sign the A-League Player of the Year, a treble winner, and he's also just made his Australia international debut as well for the main Australian national team. He'd been involved with, I think, with the under-19s and under-20s before that, but to make up the step up to senior caps is really impressive. So the fact we've been able to entice him over from Australia and beat off a lot of competition for him, it feels like a real signing. Again, he'll add a bit of creativity in that final third. I think he's going to be popping up with goals and assists and certainly a very good ball carrier. And for replacing Simon Murray, we've brought in Ronan Hale from Cliftonville, and we have had a good record of bringing in strikers from Cliftonville in the past with Boyce and how important he was to the club. I mean, Boyce is an absolute legend in Dingwall, and if Ronan can have half the success that Boyce has, then we're going to be on to a really good player. And the early signs are that he's hit the ground running in Dingwall, scored, I think it's 4 goals in 5 matches, I think, in all competitions, which for a striker coming over from part-time football is a good return so far. Got his first league goal against Dundee United as well, and certainly looks like he's sharp. He's willing to hit a shot from anywhere as well, try and catch keepers out, which is exciting as well. So, they're the few that certainly have excited county fans most. We've brought in Scottish experience with Charlie Telfer, Ricky Lammy, Jack Hamilton. Will Nightingale's come back to the club as well on a season-long loan after his spell at the club last year, which again is exciting as well. I think that's important that we know what we're getting from these players as well. They've got the Scottish football experience. You can't always necessarily rely on people outside of Scottish football that are they going to adapt. We need that experience and that know-how of what to expect week in, week out in the top flight in Scotland. So I think it's been a pretty good mix so far and certainly helped ease the pain of losing some of those key players at the start of the window.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think, looking at it, doing a little bit of research before coming on here, obviously, losing Murray and losing Danda is a massive. They're very, very talented footballers, and obviously, Jan Danda probably was the biggest loss, I would imagine, of all of those players. Caleb, who is actually from Northern Ireland, says, "I'm Northern Irish. I hate Ronan Hale. He played for my local big rivals, though. He's unreal. He's an unreal footballer. Scored a lot, and he's rapid, and he isn't scared." So, some positive news from someone who's seen Ronan Hale play out there in Northern Ireland as well. So yeah, I think Caleb's a big, is also, as well as being a Rangers fan, is obviously a big Northern Ireland football fan as well. Obviously, your manager Don Cowie's been in place obviously since last season. What do you make of what Don Cowie's done and how he's changed the team? And what sort of a job is he doing?
I think, given the situation that Don was handed the role in February after the Derek Adams 79-day reign of, just carnage, probably is the best way to describe it as it kind of ended. The fact that Don was able to come in, steady the ship, reunite everyone again, and even give us a fighting chance of, okay, granted, we didn't stay up automatically. We had to go into the playoffs again, and there was one point that we looked like we were going to secure that 10th spot and maybe, avoid the playoffs, but back when Don took the job, there was a real fear amongst county fans that Livingston could catch us here, and the atmosphere around the team, the environment at that point was it was certainly the lowest I can remember it for quite a while in that kind of manner, that it just felt so divided. So for Don to come in, he's Ross County's biggest success story in terms of a player that's come through the youth academy, played for the club, gone on to make moves in England, play in the English Championship, the Premier League, Scotland caps, and then to come back to Ross County to end his career, start his managerial career as well, and even before that, his coaching career, worked alongside Malky Mackay, Stuart Kettlewell, John Hughes. It was people that he was picking up a little bit of knowledge from there as well. And he's just such a popular guy because of that success story. Everyone wants Don to do well. He is definitely the most popular figure, I would say, amongst the county fans that I can remember. So it always felt like he was going to step into the managerial role. I think majority of county fans hoped that it was going to be a situation that was a little bit less turbulent at that moment in time. But it might have turned out to be the best thing to hand him the role at that time as well, because of his qualities, his man management, the ability to unite everyone after the contrast of that just before with Derek and the way that things ended. So, did very well. I think the home record since Don's taken over speaks for itself. I think we've only lost one home match in 12 in all competitions. I think it's 12 or 13 in all competitions, which is quite remarkable. And the ability to stay up as well, he absolutely deserved the permanent job as well as manager. I think it was going to be decided regardless of what league we were going to be in that Don would get it. But yeah, I think we all want to do well, and I think we can see a bright future ahead for him if everything goes well for Don.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think he has done a fantastic job, even as an outsider looking in, the way he sort of turned around your fortunes and from the debacle of the Derek Adams short-reigned era. And I must admit, Ross, apart from on the 14th of April, I was actually willing you to stay up and go get above St Johnstone, because I can't stand St Johnstone just because of Craig Levein. I genuinely can't stand that man. I have a real hatred of Craig Levein just because of some of the rubbish he comes out with and the football that he plays and the thuggery of his team. So I was willing you to get above them in that after that split, obviously. But we mentioned it there, obviously, the 14th of April, that game at Ross County, which I think effectively really kind of ended any chances we had of going on to win the league last season. I was going to get your take. What was that game like for you guys as Ross County fans? Obviously, I mean, I'm trying not to seem arrogant here, but obviously beating one of the old firm at home. It must have been just unbelievable. It must have been massive for you.
It was our first ever victory against Rangers, and for a moment like that, I think it was one that I'll always remember. I think I very, very rarely take any videos of football matches like full time and the celebrations or anything like that, but for that I had to take a video of the full time celebrations, as the whistle went, just for just the eruption amongst the home fans. It felt like there was a real monkey off our back in that way, that, we've picked up a few victories against Celtic, both, in cups and league competitions, that we just hadn't managed to pick up that win against Rangers. And I don't think many saw that performance in itself coming along. And the fact that, it was such a whirlwind start to the second half that all of a sudden you're starting the half 1-0 down, but very quickly you're 3-1 up and looking comfortable at 3-1 up as well. I think that was the shock thing about it. At that moment in time, I don't think many people could probably dispute the scoreline. Granted, Ross Laidlaw kept us in the game in the first half, but in that kind of first half of the second half, I thought we were brilliant, and managed to see it over the line was brilliant. And the funny thing for us with the podcast is our first episode was with Don, and it was the 14th of April, the year prior, that we announced that he was going to be the first guest on the podcast. So then, literally 1 year later, he's then in the manager's role, picks up a first ever victory against Rangers, which it was a very nice moment. But I agree with you. I think that was probably the nail in the coffin in terms of the title challenge at that point, because I just don't think anyone saw that coming. It was just such a shock. It's such a shock result. I think you see some of these sometimes in different leagues that no one's expecting, but I think that would have been definitely a shock result of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think any Rangers fans saw that coming. I think we were all kind of just expecting to go there, get the 3 points, and carry on, obviously trying to push Celtic as much as we could. And as much as we all kind of realised last season that the squad we had wasn't good enough to actually win the league, and we did have some doubts and question marks over some of our players and their ability to carry on that push. But yeah, I mean, it was a remarkable game, certainly a remarkable game, and certainly ruined my day anyway. I remember doing the live stream with that and just sitting there when we're 3-1 down, just thinking, what on earth has happened to this team, really? But no, I thought you thoroughly deserved that victory. You played very, very well that day and showed, I think, what we wished we'd shown that day, and in subsequent games that we played. You know, that fight, that heart, that spirit. You know, it's certainly something that Ross County always, seem to show, isn't it? That real fight, and especially under Don Cowie, a real fight, a real spirit, a real desire to actually fight for the badge.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect example of that is the home record that we've had under Don. Obviously mentioned it previously, but in Dingwall, we've got a bit of a advantage if we use it correctly in terms of our geographical location, because a lot of teams in Scotland, because of their close, vicinity to their rivals in the Central Belt, maybe I think St Johnstone and Aberdeen are maybe the kind of outliers, that not many of them have to go away on overnight trips or long bus journeys up the A9 to Dingwall, whereas we have to do it every second week for majority of our away games, apart from Aberdeen, where the majority of us are just going along the A96. So we're used to that travel, but some teams aren't. It's very much like there's always a saying, can you do it on a cold, wet Tuesday night in Stoke? But there is probably a little bit of a similarity to, can you do it on a cold, wet Tuesday night in Dingwall? Because the Ross County players are going to be up for it, but the bigger teams that travel up, are they going to show the same fight? Are they going to show the same desire to win the battles and come away from Dingwall with 3 points? And the home record under Don, with some of the teams that we've beaten, likes of Rangers, Hibs, Hearts, we've picked up positive results against Livingston as well. That was Don's first match. Dundee United. It shows how hard it is for these bigger teams to come to Dingwall and take away points. So yeah, I think that is a key point.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is a place. Obviously, any sort of travel like that for any sort of the big teams to go away, and smaller grounds, that crowd more on top of you. Yeah, it is intimidating, and I certainly, we felt that on the 14th, and the atmosphere was incredible in the ground. And like I said, you thoroughly deserved your victory. So this new season's got underway, and as you've already mentioned, it's been an awful lot of change for Ross County. A lot of players in, a lot of players out. How's your season started? I mean, I must admit, I haven't kept a massive eye on them. I've looked at your results just obviously prior to coming on here, because obviously trying to focus on Rangers and all the, I don't know what's going on at the moment, but all the chaos of Rangers at the moment, it keeps me very busy. But how's Ross County's season started this season so far?
I think it was going very positively, and I think it is still overall a positive start. I think there was obviously the real bump in the road last week in the League Cup match against Spartans, but prior to that, we came through our League Cup group with 4 wins. There was only 3 teams that managed to get through with a 100% win record, and that was Aberdeen, Dundee, and ourselves. So, to avoid a couple of banana skins in a group that contained 2 championship sides, one of which was Wraith Rovers, who we beat in the playoffs last season, I think was a good start. I think I had people feeling optimistic for the start of the league campaign. Went away to Fir Park on the opening day of the season. It was a 0-0 draw, but I think it was very much a point gained rather than 2 points dropped for us, because we certainly were far from our best that day. But Don, with the great home record he had, our away struggles last season were pretty obvious. I think we're nearly coming up to a calendar year for the last time we won an away match in the Premiership, which would have been, I think, around about the start of September against Kilmarnock. Now, to go to Fir Park and pick up a 0-0 draw doesn't seem too glamorous, but I think it showed signs of progress. That there was games last year that I can think off the top of my head. We'd gone to Rugby Park again later in the season. We'd gone to Easter Road, St Johnstone in Malky's last game, that we were well in the game at 0-0, but then a daft defensive mistake or lapse of concentration, something just cost us. And on the opening day of the season, we didn't have any of that. We had Ross Laidlaw, who was on top form, made a couple of outstanding saves in the game as well to keep us in it. But, defensively, we looked solid, defended our box really well, and didn't give away anything. And to get a clean sheet on the road was a huge sign of progress, because again, a first clean sheet in the league that we had under Don, which it is quite strange to think when he'd taken the job in February that we had to go into the next season to get that. But progress there. And then Dundee United in the second league match, play them off the park the first 45 minutes. Probably should have been 2 or 3 goals up. Eamon Brophy had his penalty saved, which was unfortunate for him. And then literally the momentum flipped at the start of the second half. David Babunski scored early on for United. And then all of a sudden it was that second half was all Dundee United, and until Ronan Hale popped up with a 95th minute equaliser to make it was a draw that felt like a win in that kind of environment. But, in terms of 2 points from our opening 2 matches, very much could have been more, but I think it was a positive start. And then Spartans last week was just wasn't great. I mean, we're talking about shocks on the 14th of April. That was it was a banana skin going into it, because Spartans have obviously had a very good season in League Two on a plastic pitch. They're going to set up their game plan if you give them any sort of, I don't know, inkling to try and take something from the game, an opportunity, anything to get a goal and then sit back on, you're in trouble. And I think we see a lot of these bigger teams, that Premiership sides, Championship sides, go away to lower league teams, and it's a different game of football you've got to be up for, because you can play nice football in the Premiership on, grass parks, away from home. You're going up against, I would say, more athletic players, whereas then in the lower leagues, it's more of a physical battle. You need to stand up, roll your sleeves up, and really get stuck in and take a grip of a game if you're wanting to make your mark. And I just don't think we did that enough against Spartans. And yeah, ultimately it cost us and put us out of the cup, which was disappointing, because I think Don had spoken about he wants to improve our cup record over the course of the season, and that's an aim, because we've not been good enough in either the Scottish Cup or the League Cup in recent years. But I don't want that single result to dampen the momentum, I would say, that's still there. It's certainly a bump in the road, but I think overall it's been pretty good, I would say.
Yeah, I'm fine. That would, anything like that. When you play a lower league team, we see it down here as well in England. Getting away from Scottish football for a minute, when big teams down here go away in the FA Cup, third round to non-league teams, to League Two teams, League One teams, those teams raise their games massively. And, you've seen in recent years, complete shocks, like Spurs, Arsenal's, Leeds going out to teams. So it happens, and you're right. If you're just not quite on it that day, and they're right up for it, and they're right in your faces and fighting. It can happen to any team, and luckily, obviously, it hasn't happened to Rangers recently. But I remember the first season I started following Rangers. Maybe in the second, us losing to Hamilton Academicals. Obviously not as big a gap, but that was a huge shock with the Graham Souness teams that had the McCoists, the Flecks, the Coopers in there. Losing to someone like Hamilton was massive. I was watching the documentary Rangers 72 this morning, that, when Scott Simon lost his job way back after we lost to Berwick Rangers, it's all happening. It all happens, doesn't it? So there's every chance. So yeah, it's all obviously focusing on the league now, and obviously heading up to Hampden tomorrow. Have you got someone? I can't remember someone earlier on in the live chat says obviously that Ross County have won at Hampden before. Have you got any happy memories from Hampden? Obviously not. It doesn't have to be obviously against us, because obviously that's not our home ground. But what are your happy memories from Hampden?
So I've been to Hampden 4 times to watch Ross County, and we won 3 of them, 2 of which were against Celtic. Now, the first time was the 2010 Scottish Cup semi-final, when County were still a first division team. We beat Hibs in the quarter-final, and certainly safe to say I think we'd been well written off going into that game against Celtic, and played them off the park. A real statement that I felt like that was the game that put Ross County on the map. And you look back on that, there had been a momentum, certainly in the 30 years that we've been in the professional leagues. It's 30 years this year, that we'd kind of always been on the rise. But it felt like that result in itself was a real statement result. To do it on a national stage at Hampden, to beat one of the biggest clubs in the country comfortably as well, was incredible. Granted, the final didn't go as well against Dundee United, which, it was unfortunate it didn't. But then the next trip to Hampden was in 2016, the League Cup semi-final, again against Celtic. And when you're 1-0 down in the opening 15 seconds of a game because of the quite possibly the worst defensive line and offside trap you've ever seen in your life. I was thinking this is going to be a long day here. And then Effie Ambrose gets sent off. We get the penalty in that instant as well to make it 1-1. And then again, play Celtic off the park again and win 3-1. And the crowning moment was the League Cup final in 2016 as well, which is the last time we were at Hampden in a cup competition or league competition. That to win a major domestic trophy for Ross County is definitely one of the biggest achievements in the club's history, and to win it in the last minute as well, like that, Alex Schalk's written himself into county history forever, and for Midge to score the opening goal as well, a guy that's the all-time record appearance holder, record goal scorer, two guys that were just county heroes at the time and will always be. And the celebrations after that was incredible. So there are a lot of happy memories at Hampden. Hopefully there's one more tomorrow as well, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, I know you do. We obviously hope for a slightly different result. If you had to say tomorrow, from what you've seen so far from Ross County, who would you have to say? You had to pick out 2 or 3 real danger men that Rangers have to keep a close eye on tomorrow. Who are your 2 or 3 danger men that Rangers do need to stop playing tomorrow?
So it's actually going to be quite interesting to see what changes are made to the team. So some of the players that started at Spartans on Saturday were then actually involved in the North of Scotland Cup in midweek. So that might indicate they're not starting. I'm not sure, but off the top of my head, I would say Ronan Hill, based on his goal scoring record so far. It was obviously already mentioned in the comments, his ability to cause defenses problems. Jordan White, I think Jordan's got a fantastic goal scoring record against Rangers as well, and the options that he brings to that forward line. He was instrumental in the equaliser against Dundee United, that he just causes defences to panic. That granted, he might not get the goal or the assist, but a long ball from Ross Laidlaw comes up to Jordan and he wins the header, but he attracts 3 defenders into him. That then creates a space for Alex Samuel and Ronan Hill to link up to finish the chance. So there's a couple there, and I don't think we'll see Josh Nisbet because he has only just arrived in Scotland in midweek. I think it'd be a big ask for him to come over from Australia and make an instant impact there. But again, I mentioned Noah Chilvers. I am very excited to see what he's going to do to this Ross County team, because he does look like a player. The way he kind of you can see a way a player carries the ball when they almost look like they're gliding across the pitch. He's able to kind of create something. I think if he starts tomorrow, either in the kind of the wider pockets in front of the kind of defensive midfield and behind the strikers, or as the number 10, I think he could potentially cause some problems.
Do you think Don Cowie will line his team up to come and have a go tomorrow, given obviously all the problems Rangers have had with injuries and obviously the dissatisfaction there is in the fan base at the moment, what's going on at the club? Or do you think it'll be a defense, backs to the wall defensive job? How do you think he'll approach tomorrow?
I think he'll try and grow into the game in the first half. I don't think there'll be too many risks. I think Don's been very open and said that certainly last season we played our best football when we were playing on the front foot. Now, if we try and play on the front foot against a Rangers or a Celtic, Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen, and they're on their game, we're in trouble, because the quality that these teams have, it's tough, that especially away from home. So I can see us trying to take no risks early on in the game, just try and grow into it, maybe get to half time, and then that's when we start to open up a little bit. Depends how the game's going as well. If it's 0-0 at that point, or if you manage to nick a goal in the first half and get to half time at 1-0, you never know. But I don't think we'll go, really, gung-ho and try and win the game in the first half. I do think we'll try and grow into it, and maybe similar to that game on the 14th of April, that we did take our time to get going. We had a couple of chances in that first half, but the second half and the way that we hit on the counter-attack, I can maybe see something similar happening tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. I mean, I think, any team that goes to try and play Rangers and Celtic, and tries to, attack them from minute one. Yeah, if Rangers and Celtic are on their games, you are playing with fire because of the fact that, the way it is in Scotland at the moment, obviously the vast difference in finances, squad values, etc. It is going to happen. As someone obviously looking out, an outsider looking in on our club, this summer's been quite a crazy one at Rangers, with the stadium, with with our recruitment, with this perceivable lack of money. As a Ross County fan looking at Rangers, what do you make of the whole situation with the stadium, with our recruitment? And do you sort of sit there and think, well, shut up, at least you've got, a decent squad, and you stop being so, worrying about money because you've got a decent squad? Or what's your take on what's going on at the club? I'd love to get someone, who's not a Rangers fan, get their view on our club at the moment.
I think it's very easy to say that even with the investment that's been put into Rangers so far, even if there's complaints that there's not been investment into the playing squad, one player tomorrow could be worth more in terms of transfer fees than the entire Ross County starting 11 tomorrow. And I think that's where it's completely different markets that we're shopping in. Granted, every team's fans have their own levels of expectations of what they expect their team to do. Now, as a county fan, we're expecting our club to go into the market and strengthen their team, as is every fan of every club. But we're not expecting to pay big fees. And in our world, a big fee might be 100 grand, pushing it maybe 150, 200 grand. Whereas for Rangers, it's totally different. You can then go and spend high six-figure fees, sometimes into the millions as well, depending on who the player is. It's one when you kind of look at the outside, it's like, okay, well, you're still investing in your team. You're still bringing players in for a lot of money compared to the rest of the league. They should still be good enough to go and do a job. In terms of the stadium stuff, I was gutted it wasn't Murrayfield personally, because I've been to Murrayfield a couple of times, but never for a football match. I thought it would have been a really unique scenario that we didn't play Hearts away from home when they were at Murrayfield when Tynecastle was getting redeveloped. I was hoping that it was just going to be a really unique experience, that in itself, that you can kind of tick that off and be like, oh yeah, I was there for that. That was just totally random. But the whole situation from the outside looking in, it's just bizarre. And the varying timelines that have changed as weeks have gone on. Sometimes it's been you could be there till beyond September, October time. Other reports I was reading this week is that this might be the last game at Hampden that Rangers have to play. It's just it feels like there's no calm heads or leadership actually trying to put out a message and steer the ship and say, this is the path we're going in, regardless if it's stadium development, recruitment, anything like that. It very much feels like it's very messy from the top. And then that bleeds through. That can then bleed into pressure from the fans on the team. The team then feel that, and the performances dip, which has maybe happened a couple of times this season, and maybe explains some of the negativity around some of the performances, going out of the Champions League, albeit it was very unfortunate because not as a Rangers fan, that's never a second yellow card in a million years. And that moment changes the game. But then the pressure builds off of that when you're only able to kind of get past Motherwell 2-1 at home, we'll call it, at Hampden. And then the League Cup match against St Johnstone as well. There was all that kind of contention there. It just feels like there's just something lingering, and it just adds something to the air that's probably not wanted because of the hope and the ambition to obviously overtake Celtic and aim to try and win the league, get Philippe Clement to continue his transition with the squad. But there's just far too many things that are taking unnecessary headlines just now.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said there, Ross. Actually, to be honest with you, and I think it's really interesting that point you made about the fact that we seem to lack a leadership and a calm heads. off the field. And I think that's what is frustrating a lot of Rangers fans. And there is a lot of Rangers fans who are very angry with the board at the moment, with our chairman, John Bennett, and the lack of leadership from the top. I mean, he gave an interview this year, and it's the first time he's spoken to the fans on TV on any way, shape or form in 2.5 years, which is utterly ridiculous. So, yeah, I mean, that's why a lot of us are cross and angry with this board, is because they're not being clear. They're not giving us clear messages, and they're trying to hide behind, I don't know, just random open-ended messages, like you said, over the timeline for the turn at the stadium. It does look now like this will be the last league game at Hampden Park, which obviously is good news, because I know a lot of Rangers fans hate Hampden Park. They don't like playing there, hence the low attendances, which I think are linked to, number one, the fact that a lot of fans hate Hampden, and also a lot of the fans as well, you know, are kind of voting with their feet against the board at the moment, you know, in terms of putting money into the club. You know, Rangers, obviously, we moan about some of our players, and we've got some, you know, we made some signings, and some of those signings have been really good this year, and we've got some good players from past years as well. We've lost some very talented players, and we've got some very talented players that are perceivably not allowed to be chosen because of we don't want to pay them their $6,000 a week extra. In the case of Yanis Hadji, apparently the Todd Cantwell situation as well. You know, obviously he doesn't want to play. That's kind of the rumor that kind of started from what Clement said this afternoon. As a Ross County fan watching tomorrow, which Rangers players tomorrow worry you? Which ones are the ones that, you know, you're concerned about?
I think off the top of my head, I would say, is it Václav Černý?
Černý, yeah.
Yeah, Černý. And I think maybe from the outside looking in, I might not be right saying this. I feel like that right wing area has always been a problem for Rangers, that when you've had Ryan Kent over on the other side for a few years, there was never that same quality as such on the right hand side to, you know, produce a bit of a moment of magic. And I think he's more than capable of that. The goal he scored against Motherwell was outstanding. I think, is it a goal and assist he's got in his first 2 matches? Yeah. Clearly played at a very high level in the Bundesliga at Ajax as well. I think he was in FC 20. So, you know, as a personally, I think that's one player I'm worried about there, and going up against, if he's going to be playing on the right wing, either a Josh Reed or a George Harmon on that left hand side, potentially with a centre half of Ryan Leake there as well. If we play a back three to almost try and double up on him and nullify him, I think that's maybe my worry area, that I think we can get exploited at there. And it's one of these signings that, had it been a few years earlier, when you had a Ryan Kent on the left hand side and a potentially a Černý on the right hand side, the quality would have been there. And it's still very early days, but I think there's clearly signs that he could be a very, very good player at this level.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he is a very talented player. He's direct. He's quick. He's been sort of nicknamed the Czech Robin. Those of us who remember Ian Robin, who plays for Chelsea and Bayern Munich. He very much plays like him and cuts in, inverts an awful lot. He is very quick, skillful, dangerous player. Obviously, the other one that we've really rated this season, Ross, is Connor Barron as well. He's been fantastic for us as well since he's come over from Aberdeen. Another player, not so much an offensive-minded player, more a defensive-minded player. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Černý obviously is a worry, and you're right. I mean, since he's probably the first sort of decent right wing we've had since Daniel Candeas left. I mean, yeah, you're right. We've had Kent on the left. Seema last year played more left side. Obviously, we're all pretty angry that we've missed out on him as well. He's gone to Stade Brest in France. So, yeah, I mean, Černý, that's a good shout. Definitely, you know, for a player that you need to watch. I mean, realistic. So, you know, I'm going to say this now, Ross. I wish you all the best for this season, apart from tomorrow, obviously. What are your hopes for this season? You know, what are the realistic hopes as a Ross County fan for Ross County for the rest of this season?
Give me a boring season, please. That's all I'm asking for. The last 2 seasons with all the playoffs, the drama, both on the park, off the park. Like last season itself, with going through 3 managers in Malky Mackay, Derek Adams, and then Don Cowie latterly, everything that happened, Derek's post-match comments, that did not feel like one season. That felt like 5 seasons rolled into one, was just everything that was going on. And off the back of then the season before that, when you've then survived by the skin of your teeth against Partick Thistle in a penalty shootout and the comeback and that, I would just like, I would just like a nice, easy 9th or 8th place this season, just to continue that momentum under Don, let him build again, this time next season, and see where we can go. Now, you look at the Kilmarnock performance last season, they beat us on the final day of the previous season to avoid the playoffs, and then all of a sudden they finished 4th place. It shows that teams can make big jumps in the league and take advantage of some of the bigger teams in the league, such as Hibs and Aberdeen last season, who were nowhere near good enough and not at the standard that they should be at based on the players that they've got and the money that they're able to spend on their team.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, it's one that if you can get a bit lucky and catch a couple of these teams cold and break that kind of top 6 mold, you never know. You never know. But yeah, I would very much like, if I was to get offered 9th place right now, I'd shake your hand and say, thank you very much. See you next season.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, agree. Here for you, if that's, I think when you've had a situation like you did with the obviously relegation fights and everything like that, you want that, don't you? Kind of boring season where you just kind of finish mid-table, finish to what, get that mid-table place, do with it, have a nice boring season, then rebuild, then go again. So you haven't got that uncertainty, because it's always dangerous, isn't it? When you're going into the end of the season, you've got a relegation dogfight. You can't really plan properly because you don't know what league you're going to be in. So yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, I mean, I'd love Ross County to do well this season. Obviously, not against us. I'd love you to do well against the team in green and white on a regular basis. That'd be brilliant. Thanks if you could do that for us. That'd be amazing. But yeah, I do. Like I said, I do wish you all the best. Just not tomorrow, obviously. Have you got a prediction for tomorrow, Ross?
No, I don't know whether to go with my heart or my head on this.
Well, do both. Do heart prediction and head prediction.
My head prediction is saying that if we can get out of Glasgow with nothing more than a 2-goal defeat, that's fine, because again, for clubs like Ross County going away to Celtic, Rangers, the big teams in the league, I think if you can get out of there without your goal difference being severely impacted, you're doing okay. Our goal difference is what cost us a playoff position last season. Had we had a better goal difference, St. Johnstone would have finished 11th, being on the same points as them on the last day of the season. So, that is the fear. And granted, if you come up against a Celtic or a Rangers on their day, it's going to be a long 90 minutes. I've experienced that. My heart is saying that could another result come along, the fact that we've waited 30 years for the first one, can the second one come along like buses, essentially? I don't know. It's one of these ones that, because of all the uncertainty going on with Rangers off the park, on the park, the discontent just now amongst some of the fans at what's going on, you can potentially capitalize on that. And if you're able to, play your way into the game, frustrate the home fans, maybe nick something early on and really put the pressure on, it's still a new Rangers team. How are they going to stand up to this pressure? They didn't manage to in Dingwall, and that was a far more experienced Rangers side in terms of Scottish football. This new team, is that still the same about them? But yeah, I feel like my head's going to be right over my heart. I would love to think that we're going to have another great memory at Hampden tomorrow, whether it be a draw or somehow sneak something. But yeah, I've got a funny feeling my head's going to be right over this one.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've been saying 2-1 all week as my prediction to 2-1 to Rangers. Obviously, I think it'll be a tough game. I think Philippe Clement in his press conference today said Ross County will be a tough opponent for us, and I think it will be a tough game. As a team, you make it hard. You don't make it easy. You're a team that fights, that shows spirit, and like you said, anything is possible at the moment, with the way Rangers are. As fans ourselves, we see the team. Our performance against St. Johnstone was slightly better than our performance against Motherwell the week before. So we're hopeful that, maybe things are starting to move forward with the team, and we're starting to see a style of play from Philippe Clement that we haven't seen yet. But yeah, you're right. there is a dissatisfaction within the fan base at the moment. There is an unrest, and I think a lot of teams, if they come to Glasgow to play us at Hampden or at Ibrox and they can get in about us, cause a bit of uncertainty, keep it tight for the half an hour, 40 minutes, the crowd will get a bit, edgy, and then anything's possible. But yeah, we're certainly hoping that, we can go out there and perhaps build on that performance tomorrow. And the same way you guys will be hoping that you can go and build on the 14th and get your bus to turn up again.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you said 2-1 Rangers. What I'll do is to commit to a scoreline, whether it's going to be right or wrong. I said it'll be a 2-goal defeat I'd be happy with. So my head will probably say a 3-1 Rangers win, but my heart's going to say a 3-1 Ross County win. And that would be a very, very nice day at Hampden. But if the bus can turn up, I think we might need a double-decker depending on what kind of Rangers turns up tomorrow. But yeah, we'll wait and see. And who knows? Who knows? Scottish football's mental. I think we all know that. And
oh yeah,
yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, anything can happen on any given day in Scottish football. I mean, you've only got to look at some of the results from last season. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think at this moment in time, even though there is still that gap, Ross, between the Old Firm and the rest of the league, I don't think these Old Firm teams now are particularly strong Old Firm teams. I don't think Celtic are particularly strong at this moment in time. I don't think we are. You know, yes, there'll still be that gap at the end of the season, but I don't think the Old Firm are anywhere near as strong as they used to be in comparison to the rest of the league.
I think I do agree on that. That it's a weird one. Obviously, the Cantwell situation, for example, that's a lot of stuff going off the park. On his day on the park, he's probably one of the best creative midfielders in the league. Granted, you're about to potentially lose him unless something happens. You've lost experience in that team as well, but also with Celtic, on the other hand, they've not recruited in the same way to really strengthen their position. Now, other teams in the league have. Look at the business that Hearts have done. Aberdeen, Hibs now are starting to get some business done as well. They look like they made a couple of decent signings, probably more to come. You know, it's the gap. The gap is still big between the two Old Firm sides and the rest of the league, but I think there will be more shock results this season than there have been in previous seasons. I think as much as I would hate to say it on a Rangers podcast, but the Postecoglou Celtic side is one that really drove fear into me anytime we played them, because it just felt like they were relentless and so consistent. Whereas last season, that Celtic side just weren't the same. Whether it was they were still winning games, they weren't blowing teams away in the same way. And I think there might be a little bit more of that. They've started well, granted, but I think that the way that both Rangers and Celtic are playing, I think there is more opportunities for teams to make shocks this season based on the strength of the rest of the league.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think, you know, that you're right. And look, I mean, yeah, even as a Rangers fan, I can see that you know, Ange Postecoglou Celtic were, and I've said it on previous podcasts actually on my channel, that Ange's Celtic were a machine, and this Celtic team that we're up against now aren't. And that's why I think there's more of an anger within the Rangers fan base that they're not that much better, but we're not capitalising on it. And I think that's kind of why the anger comes. Just one quick question before we finish off tonight. Bluebells are Blue says, I read earlier, Ross County's record transfer fee is less than 100 grand. Surely that's not correct.
So this is where the undisclosed fee kind of, you know, title comes in. I don't know. So St Mirren put out a statement when we signed Eamon Brophy saying that we had signed him for I think it was a low 6-figure fee. Now I'm reading in the comments there that Victor Laturi, I think I did see that post, that spreadsheet where Victor was apparently quoted as the most expensive Ross County transfer, and I think that was around about 78 or 80,000 pounds. Again, and another undisclosed fee, so it's difficult to get the full confirmation on it. We're not quite seeing full prices quoted, but I do believe, I think we've maybe paid more. We've maybe paid the 6-figure fee for Brophy, or maybe a couple of other players as well. I'm not sure if that might have been part of the development fee for Jay Henderson, who also arrived from St Mirren at the same time, to, you know, kind of compensate the deal or sweeten the deal. I again, don't really know. Don't have that information. Don't have that ins for the transfer dealings as such. But I think it's one of these things that there's so many undisclosed fees in Scottish football nowadays. It's very difficult to tell who's the most expensive and who's not. Like, how much are you selling a player for potentially too? So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agreed. Just finish up. Blue Nose Johnson's. I thought that Rangers should have signed Jan Danda. I always like the look of him at Ross County. Ross, thank you so much for coming on tonight and give us an insight into our opponents tomorrow. Obviously, a lot better than I can do by reading websites and looking at the information. You've been fantastic tonight. And like I said, I wish Ross County all the very best for the rest of the season. Just not obviously tomorrow, whenever they play Rangers, but especially obviously when they play the team in green and white. If any fans, obviously, as a football fan, I do listen to other podcasts. I do listen to other things. I don't just all listen to all Rangers content. If people want to listen to your podcast, where can they find it and where can they find you?
Yeah, so our social media channels, we are at the County Corner on Twitter /X, depends what you want to call it these days. On Instagram, we are at _county_corner because the other username was taken, unfortunately. We're also on Facebook as well, but the streaming sites, we are an audio only podcast, so we're on the usual Spotify, Apple Music, and Apple Podcasts and Amazon Music. Our most recent episode, as I said earlier on, was with the former Ross County club captain, Jack Baldwin, who left in the summer. And it was a really interesting interview with him. I think he was very open about his time in Scottish football, the quality that he comes up against, and certainly very open about the Derek Adams reign as well, which I think is one of the first times we've heard from one of the players in that situation talk so openly and honest about it, which was really insightful to hear. So yeah, if there's anyone that's interested in hearing about anything like that, head over to it and it'd be much appreciated. And Owen, thank you for having me on. It's been great talking all things Ross County as always. And yeah, hopefully again, see you soon and all the best for the season, but apart from Saturday as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ross. So thank you to everyone in the live chat as well. The people have contributed. Thank you for being nice, everybody. I know last time we had a support from another club on there was Dundee United last season. That didn't go down particularly well. But yeah, thank you so much to everyone who's joined in tonight, who's put comments, questions, etc. Right, guys, that is it for tonight. I'm going to obviously finish off the podcast now, and I'm going to have to go and do my Uber dad duties again. Thank you for watching. As always, guys, on the way out, if you can do me 2 favors. Number 1, smash that like. And number 2, always remember, we are the people.